Welcome to the What's Our Verdict TV podcast, where we fashion ourselves television judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-hosts Ian Anderson
Some shit.
and Jay Vinson.
Hola, amigos. Feliz Navidad.
Sweet, yeah, Merry Christmas. We may have Ian may join, or sorry, wow, my brain is gone. Ian's already here. Mason may join us a little later. If not, that's okay too. But do you ever find yourself wondering if you should take the time to set your TiVo, record a TV show each week, spend that money on the streaming service, or invest hours in binging that show that all of your friends are telling you to watch? Well, we're here to answer that question for you. We put TV shows on trial, discuss the facts, pass judgment, and let you know our verdict. To check out our other episodes, if you're joining us on Facebook or Instagram, you can head to our website using the link in our bio. If you're on YouTube, the link's in the description down below. And you can also listen to us wherever fine podcasts are found: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Ghana, just to name a few. And as always, to listen, watch, it's always free. Today, we are doing something a little different. So instead of reviewing a TV show or an episode of a TV show, we're going to jump in and discuss the new Star Wars shows that were announced during Disney's Investor Day. I'll warn you that there may be spoilers for The Mandalorian, depending on where the conversation goes. I'm sure there might be a few here and there, but nothing too major. But if you want to avoid spoilers, you might want to wait until this releases on Tuesday with the podcast. Other than that, let's start from the beginning. So we know that the next content that we'll see from Star Wars is the Book of Boba, and that will release in December 2021. That one wasn't actually part of the investor call. Jon Favreau called in a favor from Disney and said, can you just give me that one? Instead of announcing it at the call, can you wait so that he can do, obviously we saw the post credits introduction to that particular show. So I'll just throw it out. What we know about it is that it will be a limited series. It's only 4 episodes from what I have read and found. And it makes sense because they also announced that The Mandalorian would release in December 2021. And there are 5 Fridays in December. So there's a good chance that we have 4 episodes of Boba, and maybe The Mandalorian drops the last week of December, something like that. Or there are rumors that it may push The Mandalorian into early 2022, but chances are they'll find a way to get it out and about to us in December at some point. But what are you guys hoping to see from the Book of Boba?
I mean, honestly,
Mayhem.
Mayhem. It would be funny if they could get the actor Mayhem. That'd be hilarious.
There you go.
I personally really liked what they did by the way they announced it. I would imagine in later years of showing The Mandalorian, they're going to leave out the December 2021 part, because that was something that really threw me off when they did it. I was like, I've never seen, even in Avengers, it's like the Avengers will assemble, not they're going to be coming next summer.
Yeah.
And so, but then when we got on the episode and you guys were telling me like, oh shit, that's when it wasn't announced on the investor call, that's when The Mandalorian starts. It was like a great play on dates. And so I'm really looking forward to it. I'm glad that it's not going to be, and we even talked about how it could be season 3 of The Mandalorian, and I'm very happy that it's not going to be.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we get our own little mini series, and they're going to keep it, a mini series. I imagine the episodes will be much longer than the 30-minute episodes we get with Mando. So more than likely it'll be like a 4-hour movie about Boba.
We can hope. I think for me, the one thing I really want from this show, and I'm excited to see future Boba, like what we've already seen with Boba, where he is now. I think I want that to be the majority of the show, if I'm being honest. But I would really like to see, and I think they're missing the boat if they don't do how he got out of the Sarlacc pit at least. Like I think you have to show that to really please us wretched, very picky Star Wars fans. So I think that's the question you just got to know, right? And I guess they could keep it a mystery, but for me, that's the big one that I'm hoping to see. And then I think just seeing more and more of Boba Fett and, Fennec Shand, I think that's just a great time because they were so fun to watch in The Mandalorian this season. So
JJ, yeah. I'm kind of curious because obviously he was a bounty hunter before, and I just don't feel like he's going back to the bounty hunting life, or he wouldn't have just, did what he did at the end of that end of credits scene.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, is there any stuff out from the prior old canon that might give us some idea of like what his goals are, what he thinks where he might go with this, because I have no idea what story they're gonna tell about Boba. Just kind of leave it just. I mean, he massacres a bunch of people and he takes over, and it's like, oh, okay, well, what you gonna do with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And before I jump into that, I gotta say we got a comment already from Vern, the old guy I used to work with and sell cars with. So Vernon, what's up, man? It's good to hear from you, buddy. Hope everything's going well. But yeah, to answer your question, Ian, there's so much. There was a whole huge comic release for Boba when, in the old EU, the extended universe, and the old canon, much of which had to do with, there were just like there was with his dad Django, and that story kind of continued on where he was a big part of the Mandalorian future. To be honest, I feel like they changed him a lot when he was in the Clone Wars, and then I think he had an appearance in Rebels, if I remember right, as well, to where you saw him as kind of a teenager and a child and how he was becoming a bounty hunter. And you see him with a slew of bounty hunters that you see him with, like in you saw him with most of the group of bounty hunters that you saw him with in Empire Strikes Back. So when Vader's talking to him and there's that whole group, like at least a couple of those bounty hunters were with him in this animated version. So I really expect to see a lot of him. There's two things that he was up for, and that was one, he wanted vengeance for his dad. He hated the Jedi because Django got killed by Mace Windu. I don't think you see much of that continue because I think obviously that there's not enough Jedi for him to be really pissy about that anymore at this point. The other piece that they lean into is him becoming heavily into the underworld was something that he leaned into as a child in these animated versions. So I think what I'm imagining they're going to see is this really leaning into him taking over the Hutts, like Jabba the Hutt, or, we saw that he took out Bib Fortuna to take the throne, but leading that criminal enterprise. I'm kind of interested to see if it's going to be some sort of like almost mafioso style show where you got the new boss and now you got him leading this criminal syndicate, right? Which could be interesting, which he did have some of that in the comics when he came out, but he just tended to be more, when he came out of the Sarlacc pit, like it was more in the comics, it was more leaning in towards the Mandalorian influences and leaning towards how do I, focus on becoming more into that Mandalore, though he did get into some of the criminal underworld, but he did it more for the purpose of gaining notoriety and with that Mandalore thing. And I just don't see them leaning into him with the Mandalore thing. You've already got now Din Djarin, who has the Darksaber, who by rights could claim leadership of Mandalore. You have Bo-Katan, who wants leadership and has a right to it as well. So I just don't see them pushing him towards that piece. I really think you'll see him being this underworld, taking over the Hutts territory, maybe causing problems for the other Hutts across the universe now that he's taken over that, because probably the hub of criminal activity is Tatooine when it comes to that. So it's a big one for him to run. But yeah, the comics, I just don't see him going that route because it was so much more leaning towards his Mandalorian roots or lack thereof, depending on where you think about it. But yeah,
I don't see that either. I do have faith that you're going to get an answer for what happened in the Sarlacc pit, because these are the same people who in the beginning of season 1, they gave us that Taika Waititi droid, and then at the end they gave us a whole flashback to his life since Mando shot him, and it made us care about this character. So they can do something like that in the Book of Boba, but also just from the film character's arc, from what I've seen, because I haven't watched Clone Wars yet or Rebels or read the comics, but it seems like it's a step up from being a bounty hunter. It's like when you're a bounty hunter, you're like the worker. But when you're a king or whatever the fuck he's trying to be, it comes with a throne. You get to sit down. You get to chill. It's like every guy's arc. They go from working to being the boss because fuck working. So I hope that's what it turns into. I would love to see a mafioso type of setup with him in the Star Wars world, especially with the Hutts. Make them like big Italian fucking scary guys, man. That'd be fucking awesome.
Bring out Pizza the Hut. Oh wait, that's the wrong show. Yeah, I think they'll lean heavy into that, and I am excited to see it. I'm interested to see how he changes it, because he's obviously got some level of honor, right? Because of the promise that he kept with. But is that because it was technically a fellow Mandalorian? What, who knows where that all came from? But I'm interested to see if he kind of leans into more trying to bring to the whole honor amongst thieves or honor amongst bounty hunters, or if he even just turns it away from the criminal enterprise and leans into maybe his own guild of bounty hunters. I mean, who knows? I think you could probably see that, where we know that on the other side, I forgot, Grief Karga is kind of going legit as on his planet and not necessarily doing the bounty hunter thing. He's more, he's becoming the leader of this whole planet, really, especially on that outpost. So maybe he becomes a new bounty guild leader. Who knows? I think there's a lot of opportunity for what they do with him. But moving past Boba, we know that following that will come season 3 of The Mandalorian. I'm really excited about that, obviously, too. Like I said, if you guys haven't checked it out, shameless plug, you can go listen to our podcast or watch our episodes here on Facebook or YouTube, where we did do a deep dive breakdown of each episode, all 8 episodes of the most recent season. So go check that out. Season 3, I really want to see this tension. The more I think about it, I'm okay with Grogu being off with Skywalker. I really want to see how the leadership of Mandalore storyline is going to play out. And I feel like I can't see all of that and how in-depth it could be and different sides of that if Grogu's around, because I think we just focus so much on Grogu and how that dynamic plays out that I think I'm ready to see this story of who's going to lead Mandalore. What are we going to do to bring this planet back? Obviously, it's been glassed by the Empire and just destroyed. But what is the extent of that destruction? What can we do to move this forward? That's what I'm excited. What about you guys for Mandalorian season 3?
As I look back on like The Mandalorian and watching the first 2 seasons, Grogu was a lot of fun, but once you take that away, it is the lore and the storyline of Mandalore that's really kind of pulled me in.
Mm-hmm.
And even because correct me if I'm wrong, but I think even Din Djarin says something about the planet being like unhospitable, and Bo-Katan's like, there's enough there, like we can take this back. So
yeah,
they keep shrouding this stuff from different perspectives and in darkness, and like you kind of have to sift through, and is this right or is that right? Even with the multiple perspectives of different Mandalorians and how they feel Mandalorians should act and be and all that stuff. So I'm super excited to learn more about just Mandalorians in general and see more of the culture and the different creeds and how that's all going to play out, because I think that's been super interesting. Interesting enough that it got me watching the Clone Wars and our animated series to get a little more about that. So
yeah, and there is a lot of Mandalorian content in both of those shows, so definitely more about it.
Yeah, and like, so I don't know if you guys watch these like fan made art pieces on YouTube for like Game of Thrones. It'll be like Jon Snow, the White Wolf, and it'll be like all the best scenes with like great music. Like, I love these things. They've been doing that for Mando, and Mando's story is so wrapped around Grogu. And like, I watched like a video about how him showing his face at the end, and when he starts to cry, like that's when, I mean, this guy was reading way too much into what Baby Yoda's face can do. But he was saying, but that's when Baby Yoda became calm with his future, which, and this show does so many points of view. One of the things I did want to bring up that I found out when I posted the episode we did with Bill Burr, I wrote something about his comedy, and I was kind of wrong there, because the big thing is I remember he hates Star Wars. He fucking hates Star Wars, dude. In his comedy, he's like, fuck that pew 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 shit. And but you know what? He saw this character and this world, well, besides the world, just Mandalorian, they're able to do it from so many different points of view that I think we're gonna get a lot of the Darksaber Because what else is a man of honor to do when he's bestowed upon with like responsibility? You know what I mean? He can't just fall over and say Bo-Katan won. So we're gonna see what happens with that. But I think that it's going to ultimately tie back into Grogu at the end. I feel like he's gonna have the chance to become like the king, and he's gonna lay that shit down because he has like some sort of awareness or some word that. Because I just watched the fucking last trilogy. And I'm like, yeah, Grogu would die with the rest of those fucking people that Kylo killed. I don't think they're gonna end it like that. I feel like, and one of the ones I saw that the fan thing was called like The Promise, and like everything's focusing on that promise that, you know, I will see you again. So it's gonna ultimately get back to him. Even Jon Favreau said we can call him Baby Yoda. We don't have to call him Grogu. So that makes me feel good that it's going to come back. But even like Bryce Dallas Howard, I read, who directed some of my favorite episodes, she said, you know, he's cute, but you can only play that note so many times.
Sure.
And so maybe when we see him, he'll have fucking aged. Maybe he'll be. I would love to see a Grogu like the original Star Wars Yoda that they did in The Last of the Jedi, you know, like the puppet one. Man, if he's just like a stone Yoda, like talking nonsense, I'll be so happy with that, Mando.
Yeah, have you guys seen the new video that's out that Robert Rodriguez posted on like Twitter? I think it was. So he directed the episode where the tragedy. So when they're on the planet with the ball, the stone that he's sitting on, calling out to the Jedi. So he directed that episode, and he plays guitar. They got him sitting next to the animatronic Grogu, Baby Yoda, and he's playing this song, and they're making Baby Yoda like dance and like jam out to. It's hilarious. You really should Google it. Go to YouTube because it's funny. Because this dude's just playing guitar and he's just sitting there, got his arms up and his head's bobbing back and forth. So his little ears are flopping around while he's dancing. Hysterical. Stupid funny. It's like 30 seconds of pure entertainment. So we talked a lot about The Mandalorian up until today. So I don't want to spend too much time there. But the next show I want to talk about is one I'm probably most excited about. As you guys can see, I got my lovely new shirt. I'm just stoked about it. Ahsoka. So this show will be directly connected to The Mandalorian. Same timeline. It's going to star Rosario Dawson. She's coming back for the show to be the title character. And I think it's safe to say that in some way, and we'll talk more about this once we talk about the next show as well. It's going to wrap those 3 shows up. But I'm safe to say I think at least Grand Admiral Thrawn will be involved by name. I'm hoping that at least that Ezra Bridger and Sabine Wren, since there's a direct connection to the Rebels show, now that they've tied in Thrawn to Ahsoka with her search for him, that tie into Rebels will play out during this show, Ahsoka, at some point. And I have some other theories about the other show, which we'll talk about in a minute, but I am tickled pink that Ahsoka's getting her own show. As I've said many times talking to you guys throughout our reviews, she is by far my favorite of the newly introduced characters that are outside of the movie universe, those 9 movies. Like, she is absolutely my favorite. I've been sending Ian, I'm working on a model set for her new lightsabers, the katana looking blades like she has in the show. Building those and painting models is a tedious effort, I'm finding. But I'm stoked to get it done. I just love Ahsoka. I think what Rosario did with the one episode she had in The Mandalorian was really great. So I'm really excited to see what she can do with her own show, and how they're going to tie that into the universe. What do you guys think about, as far as, I know, Ian, you've been watching Rebels or Clone Wars, so you're kind of a little bit more familiar with her backstory, but I want to hear both of your thoughts. What are you thinking about Ahsoka and her new show coming up?
Well, if it can be the level of that episode in Mandalorian that Ahsoka was in, I'm going to thoroughly enjoy this series. Because, man, I can't remember if I said this on here or not, but she immediately jumped up to my new favorite, like, Jedi to watch kind of a thing. So I'm pretty excited to see what they do. I like because we kind of mentioned last time that these shows are going to have some tie-in event where they're going to kind of come together. I'm super excited to see how Ahsoka plays into that. So it'll be fun. It'll be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. I'm super, like you said, there's another one on the list that we'll talk about next, but there's three that I know. This one, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, they're going to be heading up this one, as well as The Mandalorian, probably Boba, and then the next one that we're talking about. And those are the ones that I'm super stoked about, besides one or two others. Yeah. But I am. I saw a little bit of Clone Wars. Nice. I want to do the movies one more time before I go there. So I did like the episodes, and I'm getting there. But the voice, yeah, I understand why they casted Rosario Dawson. She looks great. She's a great actress. She can handle it. I can tell just from the voice from the cartoons that was a very, very like white woman, and that would have been a very bad problem casting her. But still, it looks very interesting. I keep forgetting she's a Jedi. Honestly, I feel like she's a bounty, like this bounty hunter with lightsabers. But yeah, that makes me even more excited though, because like I told you guys, I watched the new trilogy, and I have so many questions about the Jedi, and I'm hoping that they delve into that a lot deeper, and I can see what Jedi can do more than just, by the way, new trilogy joke, floating rocks or whatever the fuck. Which, by the way, another thing I saw in The Last Jedi was when Luke throws his lightsaber behind him in the second one, those little bird things. One's like about to like turn it on. The other one has his eye inside the hole. And I got the fucking joke. I was like, holy shit. I've seen this movie like 7 times, and now I get the joke. But so, yeah, I'm looking very forward to it. I think that we're in good hands with these 3 that are coming out already, and the next one as well. And I know another one that they're doing that's in very good hands. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm tickled too, because Ahsoka is going to be written, and it's written exclusively by Dave Filoni, which is great because he created this character. He's been with this character from the beginning and through her development and her, maturation from being a child in the original setup of Clone Wars throughout, maturing a little bit during that up until what would, adulthood in Rebels and where we've seen her now. So he's been very much a part of, because he wrote and directed the episode that she was in of The Mandalorian. He co-wrote that episode with Favreau, and then he directed that episode. So he's been with her from the beginning. Every time she's appeared, he's been a part of it. So I'm excited that he's taking the reins on this show, because I think that just provides the best opportunity for, continuity and this character to be what she's meant to be and what she always has been. Because like I said, she's my favorite. I love her. She's very annoying in the movies, like the Clone War movies, the 2-part movie. And I found out later that he wrote her that way. Like they wanted you not to like her, because you automatically hate something like that, where you bring in this new major character with a bunch of characters that you know and love already. You naturally tend to dislike her or them. So he leaned into that. I'm going to make it so she's kind of annoying on top of it. And she was pretty annoying at first, but then she grows on you, because you just start to see her become like that maturation. You see it, and it works, so I'm really excited about that.
That's why I have when we ended last episode, we were talking after the episode, which I think I mentioned to Alec in comments, that we were talking about, what was it about, like how, I was losing my train of thought on that one, but yeah. Oh, no. Dave Filoni, about how he's in George Lucas's head, what I mean? And for somebody to have created this character, if they would have handed this project off to anybody else, I'd be like, oh fuck, but keep it in his hands, please.
Yeah, for sure. So you've mentioned it a little bit, that there's another show that's connected, and that show is called I just lost my notes. The Rangers of the New Republic. This one's interesting. There's not a lot that's known about this one, except that it is taking place in the timeline of The Mandalorian, and that it will be part of this crossover event that will connect all 3 shows. So The Mandalorian, The Rangers of the New Republic, and Ahsoka will all culminate in a crossover event, Marvel-style crossover. And I assume that Thrawn, they're setting Thrawn up to be kind of like the Thanos for this group of shows, which makes a lot of sense. He's that level of villain to me. So I really like that. But this is the third show. I'm assuming, and my assumption, and then I'll turn it over to you guys to talk about kind of maybe what you're hoping for or what you might think. But I think that you'll see at the very least the X-Wing pilot that we saw a couple of times in The Mandalorian. I cannot think of the actor's name, but he's the Asian character that talked to to Cara Dune and made her marshal of that planet. I don't think the other one that you saw with him is Dave Filoni in the first season, and then again in the second episode of this season, the most recent season. That was Dave Filoni. I just don't think he'll have the time to star as one of these. You might see another cameo from him, but what do you guys think? I think that you'll see when I see Rangers of the New Republic, that's what I think is. I immediately go to these pilots that we've seen a couple of times.
So I'll be honest, like with a lot of these, I haven't dove into maybe the speculation or what they could be about, because I get too excited and then I have to wait for who knows how many years for these things to actually come out.
Fair enough.
So plus the news isn't always true. Remember that.
Yeah. Apparently, since they kind of threw us all through a loop on the second season of Mandalorian, they're just kicking out like flat out lies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Exactly.
It's easy to trick viewers when you just straight up lie to them.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm okay with it. I like surprises, so I'm okay with it.
Me too.
I am super. This might be the one that I'm most excited for, because so all of these, I was kind of like reading down the list of the shows and movies, and I was like, man, they really are like, you know what? Like they took a Star Wars movie and they're like, what's your favorite aspect of it? Do you like the Rangers? Do you like I imagine Visions will probably be like Jedi Visions. Do you like the Jedi Visions? Do you like the droids? Well, I like the fucking Rangers. I like the Rangers and the droids, man. I can't wait to see the Rangers. I don't imagine Dave Filoni, like maybe he's not even really an actor. Maybe he's good for cameos, but
yeah,
I feel like we are going to see definitely what you mentioned, that guy. And however it kind of fleshes out, I just hope that we get a few episodes that they've given us in Mandalorian where we just kind of like sit with Mando, you know what I mean? And it's just like, I want to sit with some fucking Rangers, see what their job's like. Do they pull people over for like space traffic stops? Like what really happens? I'm so excited for this show. And I'm glad that it has Jon Favreau and this like the same. I'm glad it's gonna be part of that 3. I think that's gonna come together in a great way. And especially now that I know what the New Republic is, and like the it being on the same timeline as Mando, I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, me too. I got to pause our discussion, say hi to Mattson. He says it's really weird to be listening to this as opposed to being part of it. So we're glad you're still enjoying. He's on vacation, doing some holiday visiting with some family. So we hope that's
better read than dead.
But yeah, better read than dead. We'll keep you in on it. So yeah, thanks for popping in, Mattson. Yeah, so I'm excited for Rangers too. I want to see how this ties together. I love that they're doing like on a small scale, kind of like what Marvel did, and I can't wait to see how it plays out. And I think they have the perfect connection with, Thrawn as that Thanos type villain. So, all right, guys, this is my next favorite, and I don't know, it's right on scale with Ahsoka coming up here. And the next one that I want to talk about, this show on Disney Plus, Kenobi. So,
yeah.
Ewan McGregor returning to reprise his role as the titular Jedi Master. And then the big announcement with this one was that Hayden Christensen would also be returning as Darth Vader, which is very interesting to me because it implies to me that there will be some flashback stuff, because otherwise, how would we even know? You know what I mean?
So hold up. These are the same people who hired Pedro Pascal to just sit in a helmet all day. So
fair enough.
Maybe we won't get that. But
it's not even his voice. Like,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
And James Earl Jones has been doing, like, he did the voice for Vader in Rebels. When Vader made a couple of cameos in Rebels, he came back and did the voice for it, and he did the voice in Rogue One as well. And so, I mean, he's been coming back. So as long as that dude's still kicking, I think you'll probably hear that voice. It's just so iconic. And if you can get James Earl Jones, why the hell not? So, but I would assume that there's either going to be flashbacks or there will be, maybe some really hardcore practical effects where they make Anakin burnt again, and you show, that contraption that you see in a couple of the movies, where at least in Empire, where his I can't think of the word that I'm trying to say, but he's got this container that's like he can take his mask off and be in there. Almost like an iron lung, maybe. Yeah. And so you see, and there's one point where one of his admirals comes in to talk to him, and you see the things opening up and the helmet comes down and sits back down and completes itself. And then he gets up and talks to him. So there might be maybe a case where he has to remove his helmet for some point, and you see his face, made up with the scarring from what's happening. But it does take place 10 years after the Revenge of the Sith. We do know that. And there will be at least one showdown between former master and former Padawan. So Obi-Wan, and it is confirmed, at least through the news that I read, that Anakin and Obi-Wan will go at it one more time as Vader and Obi-Wan. So really excited for this show. And I there's one other thing I want to see, but I want to hear kind of your guys' thoughts and what you guys are looking forward to with Obi-Wan before I jump into it.
Oh, I'm really hoping to get some high ground jokes.
Right.
I would love to see a couple of those, especially if they were to show down again. But yeah, I'm really excited about Kenobi. There's just so much more potential for that story to continue. We've seen so much of it already in the mainline Star Wars movies that it's a character that everybody knows. It's going to be fun to dive even deeper into his story. So I'm super excited about this one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, me too, man. It's one of my favorite like tie-ins to the films, like where basically it's like this and a droid story that I'm like really, really looking forward to on the other side of the three. And Ewan McGregor, man, he hasn't really aged, right? It's like he aged so fast in the three episodes, and then he just fucking stopped after he became Obi-Wan, which I guess comes with getting the Force. I don't know, because he looks the same as I was just watching Birds of Prey, and he's the bad guy in that.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. But I think that now that you told me that there is like an iron lung type of thing and even thinking back on Star Wars, he did remove his helmet in the very last one of the original trilogy. And I think that is an opportunity for an amazing story arc for Hayden Christensen, because one of the things that I remember from Star Wars, even though I didn't watch the full films when I was younger, was how surprised I was when Vader took off his helmet at like the humanity of him. And I think that they really need to tap into that, which I'm sure they will, because they hired a pretty good actor to do it. I mean, not saying I don't know. It depends on how you feel about the original, what is it, the prequel? I heard Kevin Smith one time say, think about it. Like, what would make somebody so dark? A pissed off teenager who's mad at love, like, I was like, it does kind of make sense for a Vader. But if they can turn him into the man, and I was thinking, when you mentioned using what's the guy's voice again? The name?
James Earl Jones.
Yeah, I hope to God they keep using that voice, because that's the Vader voice. And then with the flashbacks, I hope we get to see that kind of build up. And then with it being Obi-Wan's show, I mean, of course, we're going to see his character arc as well, but we kind of know where that goes. And so I'm very interested in this. I'm so happy we're able to get the prequel guys back together. Let's throw Natalie Portman in the mix. I don't care.
No kidding. So some real quick before I dive in with what I want to see, I want to point. Mattson said he's pumped for Hayden to come back. And then he asked, hasn't he been taking a break from acting kind of? And I don't know that he's been taking, he might have, I haven't really looked into him much. I know he hasn't done anything recently. I know he did a handful. So I don't know if he's purposefully taking a break or if he's just not been involved, but he certainly hasn't been in as many things as he has in the past. And I will, to kind of touch on what you were talking about, Jay, I didn't mind Hayden Christensen in Revenge of the Sith. In fact, I actually kind of liked the way he played that for the most part. The Attack of the Clones, however, I struggled with him at times, but I don't know if it was him as much as the dialogue, because he seemed, there were scenes, and a lot of people, mention like the scene where he talks about he killed all the sand people, the men, the women, the children, all of them. I don't mind that one because he just seems like a petulant child whose mother just died. And I get that. This overly powerful person that his mom just died. I get it. The one that I worried that really got me was all his interactions with Padme. He just seemed like a creepy stalker in episode 2. And I was like, and she falls in love with him. And this is this intelligent, former queen, now a senator, who's out there. I'm like, really? You're gonna fall for this stalker? Like, come on, dude. So
I can tell you
my big problem with it. But
what I can tell you this though, watching, I just am in the middle of Clone Wars right now. Okay, so what Hayden had to do, and I've realized that watching it this last time, is basically he was his own character for everything besides Padme. You know, when becoming Vader, that's what Hayden does.
yeah.
But then because you had this kid in the first episode, and that's who Padme fell in love with, he has to act like this fucking no actor kid. And so it makes him seem like a stalker, like a little boy looking up at, you know, his sister's friend all the time. And it really did not play out in the movie. I agree.
Yeah.
One thing that kind of Jay was talking about that I'd like to see too, and maybe you guys can tell me if you felt differently, but in the third one, I always felt like that jump to Vader was so quick. Like there wasn't like progression to it. So I'd like to kind of see, I mean, obviously it's about Kenobi, but I'd like to see almost Vader's descent into the dark side a little bit more, where
absolutely
Senator Palpatine is pulling him deeper and deeper into the dark side. So I think that would be very interesting and kind of help me rectify this guy who went from like good guy to suddenly killing younglings. You know what I mean? Like
I know,
that's a big jump. To like,
at least like shoot somebody in the face, like some man first or something, you know, like earn your way up to kids. It seems like a hard switch.
Yeah.
A good thing, like just kind of to touch on that, because I don't disagree with you. I think that would be great to see a little bit more of. But just so you're aware, like if you go read, if you're a reader, I'm a reader. So the novelization of Episode 3 is probably one of the best novelizations of any Star Wars film I've ever seen. And it gives a lot more depth to that transition for him. One of the really cool things that this author did in that was he had he had introductions or in between chapters, these interludes almost that were like, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi now, or this is Obi-Wan Kenobi 5 years ago. And then it goes through this paragraph or page and a half of kind of what they're feeling. And he does that for all of these characters, including Anakin. This is Anakin Skywalker now. And they do that page for Vader. And so you kind of get to see his transition a little bit better, which was hard to see in the movie. But yeah, if you haven't read the novelization of Episode 3 of Revenge of the Sith, I highly recommend it. It's a great novelization.
I think Ian's absolutely right because, okay, imagine an Obi-Wan show without having Hayden or Vader in it. It's just the good side of the Force. It's just floating rocks, man. It's just meditation. I think really with this Obi-Wan show, it's like the biggest show besides maybe Ahsoka, because again, I forget she's Jedi, but it's like the biggest show about the Force. So of course, I think we need to see both sides of it. In order to see one character grow, we got to see the other one grow.
Absolutely. Matt's made a great point about Hayden Christensen. He was detached from reality, and it worked. I definitely agree. You know, he was a little.
I bet he couldn't find like Rey right now. Apparently, she can't find work because she did Star Wars.
Yeah.
I remember that kind of happened to Hayden. He did 2 movies afterwards and was done.
Yeah, he had a couple. What I want to see with this, and even if it's just quickly, is I want Maul. I want to see Maul.
Ooh.
So they bring back Maul in Clone Wars. He has a great storyline in Clone Wars. He's in Rebels for a season. And in Rebels, the timeline's such that you could do, if the timelines align the way that in my brain, which isn't perfect when it comes to the timelines, but the way that I think the timelines will work, Maul should be able to be in this show if we wanted him to. And I would love to see Ray Park come back as Maul, give him a chance to play that live action. I think it would be fantastic. Or even the guy that voices him, and I can't think of his name right off the bat either, but have him play Maul. I mean, you can put pretty much anybody under that makeup and it'll work. But I would love to see, and spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the Rebel show and you're worried about what happens to Maul, maybe you'd step away, our 1 or 2 people watching this, and then come back in about 10 seconds. But Rebels, Maul is killed, but they have their final showdown, Maul and Obi-Wan. So I would love to see maybe an interaction where Obi-Wan maybe obviously leaves Tatooine. I can't imagine that he stays there for 20 years without leaving the planet at least once. I would love to see him leave, and at that point, Maul finds him somewhere, have a showdown in live action again. I think that would be amazing. So that's one thing I want to see out of this Obi-Wan show.
So wait, they have their final showdown in Rebels. I'm pretty sure that Obi-Wan split him in half in the movie, though.
Yes, but they bring him back in Clone Wars. His hatred for Obi-Wan and the dark side keep him alive.
All right, that makes sense.
It's a real stretch of a story. It's a George Lucas thing, and once you get past the like, that doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
I would just be happy to see him. Yeah,
no,
yeah,
it's really cool. And again, spoiler alert: if you haven't watched Clone Wars, like when he comes back, he's got these metal droid spider legs when he first comes back. And so he's like got like 4 or 5 legs that he's walking around. It looks like a spider with Maul's body on top of it. It's pretty bitchin' looking, but it's weird. But they talk about the dark side. His hatred for Kenobi and the dark side kept him alive down there in this pit until he was able to put himself together. I don't remember how they explain. It's been a while since I've watched those episodes, but the storyline's a little rough to get through, but once you do, you're like, I'm glad Maul's back, because the way that they wrote him in Clone Wars, Filoni and Lucas wrote him in such an interesting way that he really added to that show when he was in it. And he adds to Rebels. His arc in Rebels to me is one of my favorite storylines, because he's attached to Ahsoka, who has a lot of interaction with him in Clone Wars, as well as these Rebels characters, Kanan Jarrus and Ezra Bridger, and he's tied into all these characters, and it's really interesting. And then he has a great arc. His last appearance was in the last season of Clone Wars, where he predicts. God, I can't. I'm not going to give it away.
Well, he had no arc.
No, I haven't watched Rebels.
I was just saying, I know Ian hasn't gotten that far, so I in
episode 1, he had no arc at all. He was just a bad guy, and I could tell honestly from the acting. That's why when you said bring him back, I was like, please. He had so much, like, the guy was playing with layers he didn't have in the episode 1. I was like, that actor's fucking good.
Yeah, it's great. If you haven't watched him in these 2 shows, you got to. It's fantastic.
And I feel like they teased him in the end of Solo, and ever since then, I've been wanting to see him back on.
Yep. I agree. And we may get that chance. That's another one I want to bring up here in a minute. So let's talk about this next one. The next one is Andor, which is following Cassian Andor from Rogue One. He's a Rebel Alliance spy. It will take place 5 years prior to Rogue One. So before Rogue One, it's a prequel series to Rogue One. And it's been described as a spy thriller. It does bring back that actor. It will also include, I think they were announcing it's 12 episodes. It will release in 2022 sometime. It's currently filming. And it will include Mon Mothma, who was the leader of the Rebel Alliance that we saw throughout the Rebel Alliance. So she'll be in it. That little actress that played her. I say little actress. She's a fucking grown-ass woman. I don't know why I said that. But so that actress coming back. But they announced there's something like 220 named characters in this show. So it's going to be monstrous, and it's 12 episodes. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it because just like with Rogue One was so different. And I said this during one of our podcasts during The Mandalorian. It was so different, and yet it brings that familiar feeling of Star Wars back, but it allows you to kind of stray away from that 100% what we've been involved with Star Wars for, since episode 4 released 40 years ago. So I really like that, and I'm excited to see the tie-in between the episode 3 and episode 4, because there's just so much time gap there that we're starting to get the fill-in pieces from the different animated shows and what we've got coming up. But I'm really excited about this one because it ties so directly to the rebellion and how we're going to get up to that point. So I'm really stoked to see this show and how it's going to play out. What do you guys think about Andor?
This one, I was kind of confused at first. Like, that just wasn't a character that stood out in my mind as getting its own spin-off series. But like you mentioned, if my guess would be that this turns into more about the beginnings of the rebellion than it does about Andor. That's kind of what I'm hoping. This one, I don't know if I'm super excited, maybe just because I don't know what they're going to do with it. But yeah, I was really surprised to see this as its own show. there's other stories out there that I think I would love to see more about the Knights of Ren, because those guys just kind of got brushed over.
Yeah.
But I think there's other stories that I would have picked before Andor, if that makes sense. So I'm hoping it's more about the rebellion.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, yeah, it's true. This is one of the ones that I'm very excited about because the actor Diego De Luna, I've been following him. He's like a no-name type of. I mean, not really. He's got like awards and maybe an Emmy or two, but since way back in the day, he did this movie with the guy who ended up doing The Revenant. It was called Mi Amor Perez, and it was about like a dog fight, or it was just a crazy kind of crash movie. And ever since then, whenever I see him, I'm in love with him. It's kind of like Riz Ahmed right now. You know, who was also in Rogue One, and he's actually the executive producer of this new show. And he is such a smart individual. That's why I feel like it's in good hands. And you know, even though he may not be the character that, like, out of all the Star Wars character we want to follow, he is the one that can bridge that gap. And for them to make it the spy thriller, for them to, and I saw the behind the scenes thing where they said 220 something named characters. And you know, that's leaving out all the fucking animals you're gonna see and shit. So like, just that alone, it ties into the rest of the world. And I don't know if you guys have seen, but ever since Mando season 2 ended, people are praising Rogue One, saying it's the best. I agree, it's the best Disney made fucking Star Wars film ever. I sometimes watch it to go to sleep, and I forget about the Vader showdown at the end, so I got to finish it up when I wake up. But it really is. And I remember my boss at the time, who's a huge Star Wars fan, was like, I hope they don't do this where they try to fix every little plot hole. I'm like, no, that was a smart plot hole. You know, like, even if they didn't fix it, even if it was just a story about a man allowing his daughter to destroy this thing or whatever, like, it's just, it was really well done. Vader at the end, and the way it tied into Luke with Mando and everything with the lightsabers, it's just, I'm excited for it. I hope that it turns out as well as I'm hoping, though.
Yeah. Me too. And I'm with you. I'm with both of you. I think this isn't I'm not as excited about this one because I don't have as much buy-in to this, because I'm such an original trilogy guy, and I've really enjoyed the Rebels tie-in, things like that. But I also am interested to see how much of because this is an opportunity to pull a lot of extended universe stuff in as well. Some of these things, like, I had a thought, I was like, man, how cool would it be? Because there was a video game called The Force Unleashed. There was a 2 video game series, and in the first one, there was a direct tie to building the Rebel Alliance. Now, they've since, you know, knocked that out of canon, but I would love to see some tie-in maybe to a secret.
That's insane, dude. I was just thinking about the Force, that video game, because in the start of it, you start as Vader.
Yeah.
Like, you go around just fucking kicking people's ass left and right with all the skills in the world, and then you have to restart as like somebody else. And I was like, they should do that. But that'd be awesome if they did that. Yeah.
So I am interested to see how they play this one out. Next, though, is we go back to the animated universe, and that is with The Bad Batch. This will mark, again, the return to the Star Wars animated realm. This group of clone troopers was introduced in the final season of Clone Wars. So those of you that haven't seen it haven't met these guys yet, but they're a lot of fun. Now, this will take place after post Revenge of the Sith. So I'm very interested with this show to see how post Order 66 will look for this group of clones. I don't want to go too far in depth because, again, I know Ian hasn't gotten there yet. So I don't want to drop too many spoilers, but this is an elite group of clone troopers that they call the Bad Batch, because they all have – most of the clone troopers were the perfect clones of Jango Fett, right? They were designed to be soldiers. They were clean. They were cut. They were everything that you look at as a soldier. The Bad Batch is not that. These are like –
Are they deformed?
Not they're deformed, but they're rejects. So like they're ones that aren't like the perfect versions. But they have strengths, right? So one of them is like really bulky and super strong. Cool. One of them's really skinny and weird, but he's super smart. And so like they're just different. They're defective clones in a way, but they make for a great team, and they've become this, like I said, the Bad Batch is like this elite group that they send into some very strange situations. There's like 2 or 3 episodes that they're in the final season of Clone Wars. This should be a lot of fun to watch, especially with it taking place place after Revenge of the Sith, because this is a group that also their internal chip would not have made them be part of Order 66. So I'm very interested to see how this show plays out. I love the animated. And again, it's a Dave Filoni thing. He's producing it and going to be very heavily involved. And there hasn't been anything animated that he's done that I haven't just been absolutely pleased by. So I'm actually looking forward to this show quite a bit with the Bad Batch. I can't wait, Ian. I can't wait for you to get to the final season.
I'll get there eventually.
No, I know. Yeah, no rush. But I'm excited for you guys to watch those because it's a lot of fun. They've done a lot of great things with these animated shows. So
it sounds even better now that you've explained it, because that is pretty cool that they got their own little like unique things going on, because they just are fucked up clones. But
yeah,
when I watched the trailer, first of all, it looks like they finally got some Disney money, because it looks like a Pixar movie almost. The trailer did.
Yeah.
And then also, you know, I was just kind of, when they showed the Bad Batch symbol, it starts as Clone Wars, I think, or something. And then it like kind of like switches over to Bad Batch. And I was like, oh, this must be a continuation of that, of Rebels or the other animated series. And that makes sense. And I was just kind of like, all right about it. But now that you tell me that they got these kind of things to them, that's the type of shit that gets me into a story. So yeah, I think that would be great.
Yep. And I will tell you this, Ian, that'll get you excited. I won't give anything away too much about Bad Batch, but a member of the Bad Batch is a familiar face from the Clone Wars, one that you'll be excited to see when you get there. So he gets inducted into the Bad Batch during the last season of the Clone Wars, and they've said that he will join this. He'll be part of the show. So it at the very least is a cameo group. So yeah, I'm tickled. I can't wait for Bad Batch. It's going to be a great addition to this animated universe that Star Wars has built. Speaking of animated, let's move on to the next one called Star Wars Visions. This one's interesting because it's very different from anything else, and that is this one's a series of 10 animated short films, and each one of them is being made by a different anime studio. So as I've read and looked into, it's very much in the vein of the Animatrix movie that came out for the Matrix, where it was like 10 or 12 different little short films that were made in anime style by different studios. And so what we know, the only quote that's come out about this show, this series, is it will celebrate the Star Wars galaxy through the lens of the world's best Japanese anime creators. So should be very interesting.
That sounds amazing.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of those that's either going to just tank or be amazing. Like there's not going to be a middle ground for that one.
Agreed.
Disney will figure it out. Trust me. If they know how to culturally appropriate, Disney does. But no, honestly, when I read it up until this moment, when you said that, because even earlier I was like, I imagine that's Jedi Visions, you know, like what else would it be called? And that's an aspect from Star Wars films that, for better or worse, is something I like. I mean, besides when Rey went to the dark side, I do like it was that a mirror, that they had like a mirror effect, because if you think about it, if you want all the answers to everything, you got to really look at yourself and especially the way the Force works. But for them to have, man, I hope they get, I have a couple people in mind. I can't think of their names, but I do hope they get them. I hope I get to see some pretty crazy Rick and Morty artistic, like weird, like even the episode where it's like, you know, stop turning Morty into a fucking anime or something like that. Like I want to see some weird stuff, man. I want to see where this goes. So I'm all on board, man. I'll take shrooms before I watch it, and I'll be set.
Yeah, should be interested. I'm interested to see how I always like new and different ways to include things, especially because when Lucas made these, he had a lot of influencing from old Japanese movies and stories, and especially in like the vein of you know, wow, my brain just stopped. Like Ronin and different things like that. So there were, and I can't remember the filmmaker, it was an old Japanese filmmaker that made a lot of samurai films that he took a lot of influence from. That's why in the original trilogy, they had both hands on their lightsabers whenever they fought, because he was basing that style on the old samurai style where you held the weapon with both hands. You never fought with a blade. A samurai never fought with one hand. It just didn't. Yeah. If you see that, it wasn't.
Well, correct. You know what else George Lucas had a bunch of back in the day when he was making these movies was drugs. And so that's why I hope that it's very trippy. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Howard the Duck. That's George Lucas on cocaine.
Yeah. That's a very interesting movie. All right. So the next show, also very excited with this one. And this one will go back to where, Ian, something that you brought up. But next show is Lando, featuring everyone's favorite scoundrel, Lando Calrissian. So very little again is known about this show, but there are rumors that imply that it will feature both Billy D. Williams and Donald Glover as Lando. So we may see multiple timelines being played out. This gives an opportunity where we've been introduced to Maul in this smuggler life, in this criminal underground situation that was connected to, Han Solo as well as, Lando. I think we have an opportunity to maybe see Maul again in his live action world in this criminal underground, because Lando's going to be involved in all of the criminal workings when it comes to young Lando, especially. I'm also interested to see if maybe they have this playing out how Lando actually, we've seen him how he loses the Millennium Falcon, but I'd also like to see how he acquires Bespin, how he becomes the ruler, the guy that runs Bespin. So very interested to see how that plays out. So there's a lot of backstory that could be interesting. He's one of my favorite characters that got very little feature time, especially when he first got introduced in Empire. You see him a little more in Jedi, but he was never a main guy. He's always been kind of a sidekick or an assistant kind of thing, even though he did blow up the second Death Star. So he did have a big role to play. But I'm excited. I'm cautiously optimistic about this show. I think I hope they don't bring in the young Han too much. I want it to be Lando's show, not here's Han to make it better. Anyway, that's kind of what I'm hoping for is to see how he got a hold of Bespin is I think what I'd really like to see.
I wouldn't mind. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I really enjoyed the Solo movie and what they did with Lando in that one.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see this one. I really enjoyed the Lando character in both the Solo movie and the originals. So it'll be interesting to learn more about his story, because besides Bespin and the Millennium Falcon, I don't know too much about Lando. So it'll be fun to fill in some gaps and get some more of the Star Wars universe with Lando in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of have a little bit of a hot take on this one because I was going to say, sorry, when I interrupted you, and I was just going to say that I honestly wouldn't mind if they put this in the hands of Donald Glover. I don't know if you guys have seen ATL, but he's a fucking smart kid and he writes really well. And if he knows enough about Star Wars, even if they have Dave Filoni check it for him, as long as it all works out. But for me, looking at the slate, besides Ashoka, who is a brown type of skin, I was like, man, this is the token black guy show of the Star Wars shows. And but I have an idea for that because we haven't gotten to a George story, but I think that that story, I don't know what it's about, but if they did it about the Black BB-8 from the new trilogy and the last two movies, or maybe the second to last one, I was like, man, he's got no story. We could learn a lot from Black BB-8. But no, honestly, because of his tie-ins with Han, I think we might see Solo. Young Solo, and probably get pissed off about it. But honestly, besides that, the reason I have that opinion is because I never knew anything about Lando. I knew he helped them in the older movies, and then he showed up once in the newer ones. And besides that, I'm like, who is Lando? And so in Solo, that was one of my favorite aspects of that film, was seeing more of this pimped out Lando. So if we can continue down that vein, I'll be more than happy.
Yeah. I'm excited to see how they play this one out. I've also wouldn't mind seeing, so we learned in The Rise of Skywalker that Lando and Luke were to pair it up for a time looking for Jedi relics, Sith relics, things like that. So I wouldn't mind seeing maybe that play out in a certain way. Maybe that's something that another reason that they're looking to maybe get a hold of a younger Luke Skywalker actor, because you just can't sustain that CGI on the budget that they're going to have. But I'm very interested to see that too. I wouldn't mind seeing something like that, but I am excited that it's a possible multiple timeline and we get to see both old and young Lando. It should be interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. All
right, another mystery show. We've only got a couple. We got 2 more shows left and then a couple movies to touch on. But the next show, a big mystery, in a couple of ways, for the most part, is the series Acolyte. So this series is kind of straying differently as far as timeline goes. It's described as a mystery thriller, which will be a female-led show, female-centric show, which is cool. And it will take place near the end of the High Republic, which is currently being introduced into the universe through a series of novels called The High Republic, which is, I guess the best way to describe it is young Yoda is a part of this story, the High Republic. So a lot of indications, people are putting a lot of rumors that imply that maybe you'll see a young Palpatine sometime during this show, maybe his master, if they keep, Darth Plagueis. So you might see that. I'm honestly just thrilled for this show. This is one that I'm low-key super excited about and yet very worried for, because I think this will set the tone, because this is going to be the first live-action anything or series of any kind outside of novels that are going to touch on this High Republic. And I think that this is they have a very cool opportunity with the High Republic being posed as what we've always known in the Star Wars world as the Old Republic, right? So I'm really interested to see how they play this out. I want them to do well, because there are some amazing stories that come from this High Republic era. And so I want it to go well. I would love to see a young Palpatine. I would love to see a Darth Plagueis. I would love to see how that plays out. But that doesn't fit with the fact that they've talked about this being a female-heavy show. So if the leads are female, I don't know how that would tie in directly, but I still think maybe we could have a cameo of young Palpatine, Plagueis, maybe an earlier apprentice of Plagueis. Maybe this is where, Palpatine takes over as a new apprentice. Who knows? But I think there's so many rumors and so little information that it's hard to know where this show's going. But I think because of the logo and what the implication of this show could be, it's low-key one that I'm most excited for besides Ahsoka and Obi-Wan, just because of what it could be and what time frame it takes place in.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add. There's only so much you can know about this one. But I do, kind of touching on what JJ said, I'm excited for them to get something good that's so separate from all the stuff that we know now. Because the little bit that I've heard of the Old Republic, I would love for them to want to venture into that. So,
yeah.
Also, do we know what an acolyte is? I can't think of it off the top of my head for some reason.
So
either way,
the only time I've heard it is attached to Sith, so a Sith acolyte. My understanding is so when you saw in the Rise of the Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, if I remember rightly, and don't hold me to this, this is not one that I haven't studied this movie inside and out, but I believe that at some point, Palpatine called all of those weird hooded figures at the end that were on that planet, he called them acolytes. But the term acolyte in the Star Wars universe and everything that I've heard has always referred to the Sith. And there is a reference in the description of this show. It talks about the rising tide of the dark side. So my understanding is this will have a tie to the dark side of the Force and the Sith itself in general, but it will play out in some sort of mystery thriller style of show.
All right. Yeah, that sounds honestly mystery thriller. And I was going to say, I mean, yeah, there is a lot to be cautious about. You can't fuck up young Yoda. What about Mace Windu? Would he be in that, I guess?
I think he'd still be too young because, or he wouldn't be, because he was, they didn't say how old he was, but Yoda's 900 years old when he dies. And so at this point, I believe, if I read correctly, and in the prequels, he's like 860 or something like that. Yeah. So I believe if I read correctly, this will take a place 100 years before episode 4.
Okay.
So you're talking a 30-year gap between roughly a 30-year gap between the start of the trilogy, the start of the prequel trilogy and the start of A New Hope. So you got a roughly 30-year gap there. So you're 70 years in advance of that, of the prequel trilogy. So again, depending on how old Palpatine is, which you don't really know. They've never actually come out and said how old Palpatine is at the end of the trilogy. So you just don't know. He may not even be involved in this at all. But there's been casting rumors that they've talked about. There's a casting rumor from someone, and this is all rumor, that Bill Skarsgård, they're looking at Bill Skarsgård to possibly play a young Palpatine at some point, which I think's great because I love Bill Skarsgård. That guy's fucking crazy. If you can have it as Palpatine, I'm in. I like that dude. So that is one casting rumor. So, but I don't know how much truth there is to it, and I don't know if it would be for this show because they didn't say anything about it.
In all of Star Wars, have we even seen Darth Plagueis, or what's his name again?
No, Darth Plagueis was in a book. There was a book that was it's a Legends canon now, so it's the old canon. It was one of the last books that was published before the canon was wiped out. And it was called Plagueis, and it told how Plagueis found Palpatine on Naboo. It told about Plagueis. He kind of lived a double life, kind of very similar to what Palpatine did. He was a merchant, a very wealthy merchant by day, and he was, of course, an underworld guy with the Sith, a Sith Lord by night, or in different circles, and he recruits. Talks about his master, how he killed his master, and then he recruited Palpatine later on. So it's a very interesting book, but it's not canon anymore. Now, it wouldn't be surprising if they pull that back in because, it was very close to the time that Disney took over Star Wars and wiped the slate clean for canon. So,
well, just like the Obi-Wan show, the more we can get of the dark side, I would love to see.
Yep, same here. All right, the last of the TV shows we've mentioned it a couple of times. Jay's talked about it. It's called A Droid Story. It is an animated series. It will feature R2-D2 and C-3PO, and they will meet and guide a new hero. And that's what we know about it. So there will be a new hero character introduced, and it will be about these two lovely pair of droids that will be helping a new hero. I don't know time frames. I don't know where or when it will take place, but that is the sentence of synopsis that we have for A Droid Story.
I wonder if it. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you might not want me to go first, Jay.
I was just gonna say. I wonder if this new hero is a droid.
Could be.
That'd be interesting.
So, out of all the, I don't know, this might rub people the wrong way, but out of all this new stuff, we've said a lot of excitement, but this is definitely the one I'm least excited for. It reminds me of the Clone Wars, because every so often you'll get like a droid episode that just feels like filler. Yeah. I feel like that's what this feels like to me too. So it'll be kind of fun. I'll still watch it, but it's not my most favorite.
Yeah. I'm disappointed now to hear that it's animated. I thought it would be a full-on CGI film of a droid, and I was hoping it would be like following, like out of all the droids in the Star Wars universe that you know of, I mean, who would you love to follow? We've already followed C-3PO, which, speaking of, after watching episode 1 and then watching like the new trilogy, in the last one, some miracle happens and he's like, "Oh, thank the maker." And I'm like, thank Anakin? Thank Darth Vader. Yeah, okay.
Isn't that funny?
But yeah, I mean, we could follow even R2's story because I feel like he has a much bigger story than just Skywalker. He's been around before that.
Yep.
I don't know, but I was excited. I'm still excited. I want to see what they can do with it. I don't know. I got to figure out a way. I got to start watching Clone Wars, man. I got to get into these animated ones as soon as I finish the old trilogy. That's where I'm at now. I watched the prequel. the last trilogy. Now I got to tie it all in, and then I can go check out the animated series.
Yeah, and I'm with you, and I'm not. This one's like it. I hate to say that I'm not excited because I'm excited for anything Star Wars. I mean, that's just me, and I love R2-D2. Like, besides, like Ahsoka's become one of my favorite characters, but R2's like everywhere in my life, dude. Like this guy's all over my room, all over my game room. I mean, he's all over my phone. Like I love R2-D2, and I love the pairing of R2 and C-3PO. They crack me up. That whole dynamic that they have has always been very fun and very lively. But I do have a feeling that this one's going to be geared 100% towards children. One thing about these animated shows, Clone Wars, Rebels, the movie itself for Clone Wars, like that introductory 2 episodes, like the 2-part movie, is very directed towards kids to the point that it's almost not very good, other than you need to be introduced to the rest of the series. But the longer that series went on throughout its 7 seasons, the heavier the material got. And while they would have some lighter episodes, and it was always great for kids no matter what, there were some very adult themes that started to play out through the animated series, and that continued with Rebels. Rebels had some very adult themes and very serious moments and some dark times. And so it wasn't just geared towards kids. Like adults like myself could find some real value out of it besides, it's just more Star Wars stuff. Like I was like, wow, they did a really good job with these animated. I have a feeling with it being, into Ian's point, the droid only episodes that they've had in these shows, you can tell are 100% for kids and to lighten the mood. Like it's not, I mean, and the content's not heavy. It's just, how do we make this entertaining and fun? And I'm all for that, but I don't know how jacked I can get for a whole series.
Yeah,
just that. I'm also, it should be interesting to see who the new hero is. If it is another droid, if it's some new character that we get to see. So, I mean, a lot of things could happen that might change my mind about it, but it's certainly not the one I'm most excited for.
But that's what I've always heard about the animated series, is that they're actually pretty heavy, which is why I'm kind of looking forward to getting into them. But yeah, it sounds like a Toy Story, and even the Toy Story is a good movie. And if it's from a certain point of view, like from a droid's point of view, I want to see it.
Yeah.
But if it's, you know, I don't know. It depends on how it's done. If it's for kids, I'm happy it would be for kids. I just hope that they do it in a good way, like a Toy Story was done, basically.
Yeah. And I don't know who's show running for this one. They didn't say. So if it's Filoni, I always have faith in what he does. If it's not, I just don't know. But like I said, I'll watch it, and I'm excited for it just because it's Star Wars stuff, and I do love R2. So I'm excited to hear the little.
I love all droids, man. I'm like the opposite of Mando. Yeah.
All right, so we talked about all the TV shows that they've announced up to this point. And I know this is a TV podcast, but I want to touch a little bit on the movies as well. The first movie that was announced was Rogue Squadron. And I was really jacked about this when I first heard about it. And I'm still excited, but I don't know how excited I am now that I've heard a little bit more about it. So it'll be released Christmas of 2023. It'll be the next feature film that we get in the Star Wars universe. It's helmed by Patty Jenkins, which I was really excited about until this past weekend when I watched the most recent Wonder Woman. That movie was such a letdown that I can't help but go, really? Don't screw this up, Patty. So it'll be the first, which one thing that is exciting, she's the first female director involved in the Star Wars universe. And she did make the first Wonder Woman, which I did enjoy. So I'm hoping that she finds a balance between the two. She has stated, I am excited too, because she stated that her father was a fighter pilot, and she always she's always had a dream of doing a movie centered around fighter pilots and dogfights and that kind of. But so for me, the thought of someone that has tie-ins to that world and want to make a film about it using X-Wings, I'm all in, right? Like, I think that's cool as hell. The thing that has me worried is I first thought when I heard Rogue Squadron, I'm like, oh shit, that has to be during the first trilogy, the original trilogy time, because what they used to do, the Rogue Squadron, there was a series of books in the old extended universe, the old canon, called the Rogue Squadron, and that was led by Wedge Antilles, who was the guy that was always there with Luke when he was flying the X-Wings, and both the start, like he was always the guy that was in the pit with Luke, and he gets shot but not destroyed. And Luke says, "You can't do any more. Get out. Do good back there. Get out of here." So he doesn't actually get shot down by Vader right before Han comes in and saves the day and shoots Vader out of there. That's the guy. That's Wedge Antilles, and he led Rogue Squadron. So I was like, "Oh shit, we're gonna get the Rogue Squadron, Wedge Antilles." But what I've heard recently is that this is actually going to take place in the time frame of the sequel trilogy. So Rey and the John Boyega stuff, like the most recent trilogy, is what I heard that this will take place from. And I just go, I don't know how I feel about that. Because for me, I hear Rogue Squadron and my brain immediately goes to that time frame. So when you pull me to the way far in the future, I'm like, it doesn't compute to me. And that's a me thing. Not saying this movie won't be great, but that's my fear. I'm not a huge fan of the fact that it might be taking place in that time frame.
So I got to tell you, JJ, this was the one that I want. This is the one that got me most excited, especially like playing the old Rogue Squadron games, you know?
Yes.
And as a fighter, yeah, because but hearing what you're saying, my hopes are feeling dashed.
I know.
I know. I'm a little nervous about it now, but this is the one that I was most excited for because I really want to see a dogfighting X-Wing TIE fighter movie because that just sounds sick. I'll keep my fingers crossed. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
There might be a reason why they did the jump, because maybe if they would have, I don't know, maybe. I'm just saying, if they're going to do a dogfighting movie, now that you tell me that this is a feature film and not a show or a Disney Plus movie or whatever, if they want to make it very cinematic, you can't really go back to what the X-Wings were doing in the 70s or you know, back at whenever they made those films, from what JJ is talking about. If you bring it into this new age where we see all this new shit, like even when I was watching The Last Jedi and they can trap him warp speed, and it was like, yeah, they can just do that now. So I feel like you're gonna see some cool ass weapons, and they're gonna be like, yeah, we can do that now. Fuck it. We're dogfighters, and it's a new age, so they're a lot better than they were, or at least I hope they'll take it that way.
Yeah. So yeah, and I guess so. I just was pulling something up because I wanted to make sure. Yeah, everything's leaning towards the New Republic, and even like the logo that they've shown off with the X-Wing in, like, there's a red highlighted X-Wing in Squadron. When you look at it, like the turbines that the X-Wings have, they're very different in the New Republic era than they are in the original trilogy era, and those turbines seem to be. Granted, it's a silhouette within a word, so it's very much who the hell knows. But it looks more like the Poe Dameron style turbine than it does the Luke Skywalker turbine. Again, could be wrong, but I really, really, really want it to be in the original trilogy's timeline because I want to see Wedge Antilles. I want to see, and they have said that it's about a new group of fighter pilots being introduced into this squadron and how they're growing up within this Rogue Squadron and becoming these new fighter pilots. And I'm like, there's so much opportunity to tie this into such a cool time in the universe. Mm-hmm. I'll still love it. I'll still enjoy, because I love the concept of an X-Wing dogfighting movie. I just would, my preference would be for the original timeline instead of the New Republic timeline. But True. We'll get what we get, and I'll enjoy it because it's got Star Wars attached, and it's fucking excellent, dude.
If I could just give one suggestion to Patty Jenkins, it would be go to Amazon wherever you need to get as far back in the consoles as they go. Play the video games. Play those motherfucking video games until you're completely done. There's even a new one like on the PS4 for like Rogue Squadron. And those are always been the best dog. Like, you know, I remember that and Star Fox were like the good dogfighting games. So, you know, start there, and I think you'll end up with a good movie.
Yeah. Okay, so finally, there's one last movie to talk about, and this is Taika Waititi's new untitled film. They haven't. There's very, very almost nothing is known about this film.
I don't have it written down.
Yeah, it was announced during the call, but they didn't even give a logo. Well, they didn't put it with the rest of the logos and the shows and stuff, because There's no name for it. There's no release date for it. All we know is that Taika Waititi is directing it and writing it. Which, first of all, that alone excites me.
Yeah.
Because there's been nothing that he's done that I haven't enjoyed. The man's a fucking weird ass genius, and I love him for it. The thing that is interesting to me is the one logo that they did show, and it could be very placeholder, but it's in Star Wars, but it looked like the old Ben-Hur movie logo. And so my brain goes, that's like old school shit. So are we going back to the old Republic? Like, is he going to be the first that's like the High Republic, whatever it is? Is he going to get to touch on very early world Star Wars? Because that's when I saw this logo, it looked old school. Like you're going back to the beginnings of maybe some of this storylines, which would be really cool. And he'd be a fun one to do it, but it could just be him being a goofball and creating this logo that just looks really funny, because that's the kind of shit that he would do. Did you guys see his tweet that he put out recently about his movie? Like somebody tweeted at him saying, "I can't wait for your movie." And he tweeted back, he goes, "What? It's a long," he goes, "Get ready for an unforgettable ride," or something like that is what Disney tweeted about Taika Waititi making this movie. Get ready for an unforgettable ride. And he goes, he says, "What? Ugh. As a longtime fan of Star Wars, I'm so angry about what I'm about to do to ruin it." And I was like, that's a Taika Waititi thing to say. So, yeah, we know nothing about it, but I'm excited to have him touch some Star Wars.
He's the perfect guy, man. And honestly, even if it does do what you're saying, from Jojo Rabbit, we know he's somebody that can play with history in a great way. Mm-hmm. So I have such faith in him, and everything he's done. What We Do in the Shadows, the Hunt for Hunt for Wilderness with the kid from Deadpool 2.
Yep.
Everything that he does, man, everything he touches. Jojo Rabbit was my favorite movie, like not even of the year. It might be one of my favorite movies of all time. He is a brilliant writer. He's done great in The Mandalorian. The episodes that he directed on that, and even just being the droid was pretty fucking awesome. So yeah, if it has a Ben-Hur feel to it, I could see him easily doing something like you're talking about. I would be very excited to see that.
Yeah, I love Taika Waititi. It should be fun. All right, well, hey man, we've covered it, boys. That was an hour 20 minutes of talking through Star Wars. It was a lot of fun. I'm excited for everything coming, man. I'm just tickled. You know how I feel about Star Wars. So this right now is I was talking to Mason after last week when he was with us, and I was like, it's a fine time for Star Wars. Yes, it is. So, to steal a phrase from one of my favorite YouTube channels, those guys, the dads are funny.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Kind of a dark time.
Yeah.
But to what you're saying about his tweet, I do want to say the only other time I've heard somebody tweet something like that was Paul David Anderson, right? The guy who does Magnolia.
Mm-hmm.
All right. When he did Inherent Vice, he was like, I love that book series so much that I was like, you know what? Somebody's going to fuck it up. I'm going to fuck it up. And I love Inherent Vice. It's such a great movie, man. It's got so many different things to it. I don't know if you've ever seen the YouTube video about how he might be just, each character and himself, like when he's putting on the makeup and the girl's putting on the makeup on the phone. So yeah, the guys who know what they're doing, they're usually the ones that can like make fun of themselves before they do a project because they know how fucking good they're going to make it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I'm excited for him. He's so funny. He's a genius. All right, boys. Well, that's Star Wars. We've been talking to this forever. I want to thank those that have tuned in. We had quite a few listeners for a while. Thanks for all the comments, the saying hi. If you want to listen again to more of our episodes, you can go. We have our link here on the screen. Whatsourverdict.com is our website. Again, you can listen to us wherever podcasts are found, wherever it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Ghana. They're everywhere. We're all over the place. What's Our Verdict TV. You can also listen to our sister podcast, the What's Our Verdict Movies. We review new and old movies. We just reviewed Wonder Woman 1984, so watch for that review coming up on Monday, the 28th at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll release that. If you have seen it and you're a fan, you may not want to listen to it. We're not very kind to that movie, unfortunately. So
I can tell you this, just from the trailers, I was like, what the fuck? A cheetah woman? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, there's a lot to. I mean, the cheetah is a big villain in the comics for her, but it just, man, it's yeah. Anyway, listen to the review. If you want to hear about it, go check it out. It's a fun time. We kind of get after that movie a little bit, but yeah. So come find us. You can also interact with us here on Facebook at What's Our Verdict. We're also on Instagram and Twitter, also at What's Our Verdict. Please let us know if you want us to watch a show or talk about a different show. We're happy to do that. We have a minute until new shows come up. So we maybe a minute between, episodes. Maybe we'll do another one of these at some point about the Marvel stuff they announced during the investor call. There's some great shows coming up starting next month, very soon, a couple weeks, from Marvel as well that I'm sure we'll cover. But for now, lean into the movies and let us know what you want us to watch or review. We'd be happy to do so. We appreciate you tuning in. And guys, I would say at this point, we will catch you on the next one.
Yeah. So long.
See ya.
Whoa!